Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we are here with the PSA Soccer Pop Report for the summer of 2023. For those that are unaware, every 3 months I come by with a PSA document that I update through Excel. Break it down in terms of what's changed, what's getting graded, what isn't. I feel like it helps out in soccer because soccer is sort of one of these, emerging landscapes where things are still getting submitted, things are still getting found. So it's nice to be able to keep up and, know what's going on. So hopefully you guys enjoy. But with that said, let's get into it. So here we are. I've hopped on over to the slideshow presentation that we have today. There's been a bit of a boost in the budget here and was able to make a bunch of pictures for all of the notable rookies. I did have to cut a few out just because honestly I didn't feel like making them, and I felt like, maybe their relevancy in the market has, dwindled a bit. Maybe their pops have gotten a bit high. So there are a few cuts. In addition to that, there are names I will be adding on top of other rookies I will be adding for different guys if it's relevant. But yeah, really excited to go through this and happy to have pictures here to accommodate your Excel doc today. So as we go through it, you'll be able to see all of the rookies, or at least, the notable early cards that I am tracking. And then I have them numbered down here on the left. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Here's Stanley Matthews. So we have his 4 notable early ones. There are others, but these are the 4 at least that I am tracking. Looking at the percent changes here, on the far right-hand side, you're going to want to note this because in the later documents, it is not there. But it says percent change is this left-hand column, of which at the bottom is summarized. And then we have total change for these 3 months. And then we have total change for the prior 3 months. So really what you're going to want to be looking at is the total change for a player compared to the last 3 months. That's going to be really helpful in terms of understanding, how much new items are coming out of PSA. And yeah, looking here, as you can see, Stanley Matthews, these 3 months had 32 compared to the prior 3, where it was 13. A total change of 20%, which is pretty high. For the total change, I do average the percent change for all of them. So that's notable in the cases where maybe a pop, 1 goes to a pop 2, and that sort of overweights things. Here in this case, there's a lot of Stanley Matthews rookies, so it's a pretty, even change and actually represents what we're seeing. Then moving on to DeStefano, we have an example of that here. In the 3-month change, there's a 100% boost to the 1947 Norland Figuritas, the Aruc, and basically it goes from a pop 1 to pop 2 in PSA Authentic through a 2 grade. Notably also, Bruguera keeps on keeping on in terms of the population coming on in. 38% increase to the PSA 8 through 10s and 28% increase to the 5 through 7s, which is interesting. It's been like that for a while. As you can see, these 3 months, a little bit more than the last 3 months. Looking at Puskás here, we have the 4 notable items that I put on there. The first 2 are basically pretty hard to obtain rookies. The third one's going to be, one of the more easily obtainable. And then 1959 Heinerle is just a pretty iconic one and a good set, so I figured I'd throw it in there at least to track that a little bit. Looking at the pop moves, basically, the 1950 went up 66%. There was 2 more added to that pop, so that was a pretty big move. This one actually sold on PWCC for a hefty price. Beyond that, we have 3 more A and BC All Sports getting graded and 9 Heinerles compared to before, which is about the same, so 15 in the prior 3 months, 14 in these 3. All in all, relatively similar. With Garrincha here, we have most of his rookies, some of them with some variation to them, so just, note that internally. When we look at the pop change, really nothing crazy. There were some early Garrinchas found, so there's a, authentic 1953 Felice. There is a 1956, or I guess 1955, color Benassi that was also found in low grade. And, I mean, all in all, 3 compared to 4 before. Only 1 Venchi, but it was in decent grade as well. Overall, leading us to a 15% increase just because some more rare ones were hit, but, relatively not a lot of quantity. On to Pele. This is one that I'm definitely going to bolster next go around for this video. I do want to have some more relevant Pele rookies. Honestly, I have the Gazzetta in here and the record, both just because they are more plentiful, so at least then you can gauge something that, gets graded a bit more often. But we'll look at it here, and I'll try to have more of the middle 3 that you see here represented in the future, those types of releases that are a bit more respected. But looking at the pops, basically, nothing too crazy. 15 this month compared to 13 the prior 3, so relatively the same. Notably, the Gazzetta plus 7%, the Titulares actually plus 7% too, mostly in low grade, which also would make sense, and the Record, relatively plentiful, getting another plus 5. No Titulares, Vertical Headshot, and only 2 of the Alifas, but, I mean, the Alifas aren't all that rare. I mean, that's sort of something that's weird with Pele, is that rarity doesn't mean, best one. Usually it actually is quite the opposite, in the sense that if you can't see it, you don't think about it. So it makes sense that the Alifas, relatively high pop. And we'll see that even more in the future if I compare it to, other Brazilian releases, or, which ones you'd like me to add. If there are any that you would like to see in the Pele list, let me know down below. Preferably, some of the better ones and not just ones that you like personally. But nothing too crazy going on for Pele in this season. Eusebio here, you're not going to see a lot of Eusebios generally graded, especially his early ones, but we actually do have some of the, I guess 1961. These are the matchbooks in the top left. These get graded a good bit. I mean, they're matchbooks. I don't really class them the same. And I think most people would generally agree. I mean, this is much different than what you see here in number 3 and in number 4. I mean, these are absolutely beautiful. This is, something I wouldn't even really want to look at in my collection. Not that I wouldn't like to own it, I guess, but it wouldn't be something that would give me those types of feelings. Nonetheless, all that to say, basically, no early Eusebios. There was 2 Calciatories, both blue, that were graded, but other than that, very, very quiet. George Best, always loved the 1 true rookie. Actually 6 graded in these 3 months compared to 1 the prior, so decent. Mostly in low grade, though, so it is notable. You would imagine the pop starts to fill out a bit more whenever the, middle of the bell curve is at a 5 through 7, and then the 2 to 4 range hasn't really been graded that much. You tend to think over time the 2 to 4 grades are what is going to build out more, but we'll see. With Beckenbauer here, we're down a little bit from the last 3 months. It was 16 prior, now it is closer to 11. Although, high grade, there were 2 TTTs in a PSA 8 through 10 that were graded. From what the data showed me here, that's a pretty sizable change. I mean, those are massive, massive stickers, and I'd be interested just to, see if PSA got those right. Always interesting to see high grade, PSA vintage. Lately been a bit more, hit or miss. But generally speaking, nothing too crazy. The Bergmans also sort of slowed down, especially in high to mid grade, only releasing what would appear to be 1 of them this month, and then, most of the others in 2 to 4. Jared Muller then keeping the theme here, 15 the prior 3 months, 5 these 3 months, so a decent bit down, continuing the German lack of grading as of late. Here we have the perforated Verlag getting the, big boost in high grade, and then other than that, really not much at all going on. Bobby Moore, here I have the first and second rookie noted. I don't have the San Giorgio, but I will do that one in the future. But looking at this, 2 bazookas these 3 months compared to 1 the prior 3, so, I mean, generally speaking, they are trickling on in, but, nothing too crazy. For Cruyff, this one was down quite a bit too, from 10 to 3, and the only 3 getting graded in this season was the Vanderhoots, no Verlag, and no Palarex. For Platini, he only had 1 in these 3 months compared to 1 the prior 3, so this has really slowed down. This was something that at one point was, believed to have been able to be pulled out of albums and just graded in mass and high grade, or at least that was sort of the thinking. It could also be that PSA just, loosen their standards on grading, or maybe they don't know as much what they're looking at depending on who's grading. I don't know. Nonetheless, the population's really slowed down, and that's very interesting. I'd be interested in what people think in regards to this. This was one that was just appearing endlessly there for a while, and now isn't at all, which, just makes you wonder. Maradona here at 19 the prior 3 months compared to 14 this 3, notably the Estampas having none graded. While everything else was in the 2 to 3 range, and then even the Calciatori only at 7, which isn't anything crazy, just a couple a month for what is, the most graded card in vintage, isn't anything wild. Starts to make me wonder if, maybe populations are relatively trustworthy, at least just in the sense that they can give you a good barometer. At least, for the more high-graded stuff. Say for this Calciatori Maradona, I mean, we're looking at the pop down here, 71, 155, 111, so that's over 300, and there's only 2 getting graded a month. I mean, year over year, that's 25 graded, so that's, maybe a plus 8, 10% to the overall pop. I mean, really, that's nothing that crazy, and it gives you a good idea. Now, this could just be, a one-off. Of course, last 3 months it was 11, so, somewhere in the middle, but not crazy. I mean, especially for something that's that high pop, it's a nice point to be at, I would think. Then we have Franco Baresi. Here we have the Disc Calciatori along with the regular Calciatori, and I will be adding the Calcio Flash in the future. Actually, I don't think PSA grades it, or I haven't seen any graded by PSA. I don't know what the standing is, but if I can add it going forward, I will. I feel like it's worth putting up there since it's in the realm, but I cannot find anything for PSA on it. Just looking at the slab, it could be because I have to put in F. Baresi instead of Franco, and I'll try that after the video. We'll see. Nonetheless, here we have the Disc Calciatori getting a +2, which was a pretty hefty percentage, along with a +7 to the regular Calciatori, up a big boost from the prior 3. Prior 3 months was 4. This is 9, and some notable ones coming out at that. So, interesting to see there. Ruud Gullit with 1 compared to 0 the prior 3 months. So, again, this sort of, I don't know if we want to call it vintage. I don't know what the cutoff is for vintage. It's really strange, but this is sort of what I think is like the lost era. The 70s and 80s aren't quite vintage, but they're not quite pre-modern, and so they're sort of in this weird space. But the Dutch stuff is really, really hard to find in this. I mean, only 1 graded. Lothar Matthäus here. I'll throw this one in just always as a sort of a checking up on to see if there are any, but yeah, only 2 from PSA up until this point. While the Mark van Basten here, we had actually 2 Panini ones getting graded in the last 3 months compared to 0 the prior 3. There was 1 in med grade along with 1 in what would appear to be lower grades, so, still great stickers, but interesting to see 2 of those. It's also fun since I just made these pictures that I also basically have the picture of the one that got graded. I mean, if you look at the cert number, that's very recent, and it's in PSA 5 through 7 range, so that's more than likely what we're looking at. Lovely looking sticker for sure. We'll move on to Paolo Maldini now. We have 3 different ones for him, the Calciatori, the Flash, and the Forza Goal. Here, 5 graded the last 3 months compared to 8 the prior, so not too bad. There were more Flashes graded than prior and a lot less Calciatoris. Not many Forza Goals to be seen. This does also sort of, gatekeep the Forza Goals in a way, since I'm looking at higher grades to sort of cut off the Calciatori and the Calciatori Flash. But yeah, only 2 of the Forza Goals in mid to high grade. Roberto Baggio here, we have 7 compared to 7 prior, so pretty similar. The Forza Goals actually for him grade pretty well. You would imagine more have been sent in, so that could play a role, but also, yeah, I mean, 2 in this 3-month span, a 7 through 8 and a 5 through 6, so that's pretty huge. And again, we can see one of them right here on the right. Interesting to see this. I will add the Disc Calciatori panel with him and another man whose name are all messed up. I will add that going forward. We have a Cantona here that I always like to check on. Just the one true rookie, hard to find relatively, and as you can see, 0 graded in the last 3 months compared to 4 prior, so, kind of stalling out there, at least for the moment. Bergkamp, here, let's look. I didn't even know. I can like zoom in if I double click. This is crazy. I had no clue. All right, well, we might use that feature. Nonetheless, we have 4 graded here in these 3 months compared to 3 in the prior 3. Spread across all the grades, really, so, pretty universal. Moving forward, we have Zidane, so here only 1 compared to 1 in the prior 3 months, which is really, really nice. I mean, on 2 different fronts, really. I don't own this, so I'm not like, pumped for my bag to go up. I know you basically always have to sort of caveat those things nowadays, because people are interested, and, I guess, okay. But basically, I'm excited because it means that, well, 1, these things aren't flooding out there, which is good for the people to have them. I'm not rooting for everything to go to 0 as much as I would like it. I don't own one, so, I'd like to get one. But at the same time, it excites me that PSA isn't grading fakes, because, you would think that if you're going to be grading fakes, this would be one that you'd be getting faked and maybe be getting duped by. And to only see 2 getting graded in the last 6 months is nice, because it shows that they're still grading it, still trying, unlike something we'll see later, yet they really aren't grading many. Nonetheless, that came in a 5 through 7 range, and yeah, I mean, nothing too crazy compared to the overall pop, just a 1% increase in a 3-month time frame, which, isn't anything crazy. Actually, 2%, or I guess 2.5% increase over what is a 6-month time frame at this point. So and for Ronaldo here, we have the 3 months at the bottom, 22 compared to 20. Really no slowing down here. One thing in particular, I guess if we look, the vote balls were graded quite a bit, actually. The Deportivo slowed down quite a bit, which is also nice. We've been seeing a lot of those Deportivos going to auction, so I'd imagine now in the next couple months, we probably don't see as many. There were 16 graded in the prior 3 months compared to 6 in these 3. And also, the vote balls I was not seeing at auction at all. There was 1 and 3 prior graded. Now there's 8 and 7, so maybe we see more of those. That sort of identifies to me that you can also sort of get a jump on the market if there is something you're looking for and maybe a lot were graded in a short amount of time. That usually doesn't happen. Maybe that's a time to hop in, or vice versa. If you see these videos and maybe something goes from, really plentiful to not plentiful in these 3 months, I think that's also very, very important. So that's a good, sort of situation where that makes a lot of sense to me. And yeah, I battled with having the Nike promo in here. Not anyone can let me know how you feel about that. I think it's a bit different than everything else, but at the same time, I do think it looks kind of cool and it's a bit unique. So I threw it in there. Then we move on to Thierry Henry. In these 3 months, 6 total graded compared to the prior 3, where 16 total were graded. None of the Russian versions of the Equipos Europas have been graded. However, that's sort of a thing in and of itself. Beyond that, a huge drop off on the Equipos Europas, the Spanish version from 14 to 4, so that slowed down a good bit, and the Panini Foot's just chugging along there at 2 and 2, so nothing all too crazy. Then we have Xavi here, 4 different rookies. Notably, the Monday Chromo is going to be the most accessible by a good margin. Here, 7 graded for the Monday Chromo, 7 graded for the Este sticker, which is interesting because that's a huge difference than what we saw prior, which was 17 of 4. And then beyond that, the Panini Football actually had 1 graded, and the Panini Liga had 0. So both of these only 1 apiece over the last 6 months, while the others were 10 to 25. So much more plentiful. There's really a sort of a big cutoff, I would say, between the 2 on the right and the 2 on the left. For Ronaldinho here, we have his true sticker rookie. Only 1 coming in these 3 months compared to 0 prior. Again, sort of the same thing I said about the Zidane. Very, very encouraging that they are grading them, but they're not high grade. Now, the Ronaldinho is actually much more rare and higher grade. So this is a plus 3%, which seems a bit bigger, but realistically, only getting 1 sticker in half a year for such a key player is obviously not enough. And that's sort of one of the underlying things that we can talk about here is that, sure, it's been all doom and gloom. Everyone's been sad. But at the end of the day, I mean, pops have slowed down a lot. People aren't selling as much from what I see. And so if demand does tick, stuff like this could move. And it's crazy because, it hasn't done it in forever, but it is possible. And then we move on to Zlatan, which is a very similar scenario. Here he has 30 total graded in a PSA 5 through 10 range, and none in the last 3 months, and none in the prior 3. So 0 graded for Zlatan. It does make me worried a little bit about fakes, but at the same time, when they turned off the grading of Messi's, they also did that while eliminating some from the pop report, and I have not seen that for the Zlatan. So until further notice, we'll take that as is. And if that is the case, then, 0 Zlatans, 1 Ronaldinho. We'll move on to Cristiano Ronaldo now, and you're just seeing very low numbers for very, very prevalent players. Ronaldo, only 4 graded in the last 3 months compared to 5 in the prior 3. Notably, at least I think so, the football sticker only 1 graded in the prior 6 months, which is pretty crazy, honestly. And still only 8 for the Mega Cracks, which for a player like Ronaldo, 8 isn't all that many. We were talking about vintage players earlier where they were having, 10, 20, 30, 40 graded across their rookies. Ronaldo has 4 and then 5 the prior 3. That's just ridiculous. Don't really know what to say. Don't want to say too much, honestly, just because I don't want to get caught being too optimistic. I know that's like, sort of a cardinal sin at this point, so I'll stay away from it. But yeah, very interesting, at least from my perspective. Moving on to Iniesta here. Oh my goodness. 59 graded in the prior 3 months compared to 8 in these 3 months. So whoever had their hordes of Monday Chromos, stop sending them in for at least the summer months, and, whether or not they return soon, who knows. But that's a pretty hefty drop-off. I don't know what to take from it. Again, they could just start subbing a ton. The Monday Chromo, I would try to say focus on 9s or 10s, preferably 10s, but obviously, there's a price to be paid for that. The other stickers, pretty rare relatively to the Monday Chromo. So again, if you're into that sort of stuff, I would definitely be more inclined personally. And then we're going to go to Sergio Ramos. We're going to do Sergio Ramos, Lewandowski, then come back to Messi, end off with a banger. I feel like that's only right. So here we have the Sergio Ramos rookies. I feel it's notable to put the top Liga Chromo foil in there because I've just never seen a pop show up here in the 8 through 10 range. So until that happens consistently, it will stay. Still a pop 0. And yeah, no Sergio Ramos is graded at all. No mega cracks, no S days compared to the prior 3 months. So, partially, I'm sure it's just defender lacklusterness across the market. People just don't care as much. But also at the same time, not all that easy to, get good grade Sergio Ramos rookies. So it is what it is. We have Lewandowski here, +8 to the pop in these 3 months compared to the +5 from the prior 3. Notably, as always, like to point out that the headshot seems to be more rare. I mean, when you look at this pop 10, 5 times as rare. Pop 9, half as many. Pop 8, about a third as many. So just something to be cognizant of. The action shot with the +7 is pretty sizable, 5%. And finally, we go to the granddaddy with a lot of rookies here. So Lionel Messi, looking across the rookies, just know there are different versions. That's why there are multiple linked up. Whenever we look down at the changes, this is pretty hefty. So it went from 32 graded, realistically 36 graded in the prior 3 months to 101. There was a -4 for the S-Day sticker. That's because they've been trying to sort of do some work to that population and get rid of some maybe bad actors. And so yeah, you would say that's a pretty big jump up. Realistically, the 32 was sort of a big drop off. The 3 months prior to the 32 was over 100, so this 101 would actually look a little bit less, but compared to the 30 again, obviously it's going to look much more. Realistically, it's within the range. Notably, 30 Monday Chromo in these 3 months compared to 5 in the prior 3. Also, the top Liga Monday Chromos got graded a good bit, 12 and 13, adding to both the 9s and the 8s pretty heavily. A lot of PSA 9 foils, which is pretty hard generally. So that was something of note. I've seen pictures of them in the past with people having lots of them, so I don't think they're necessarily the rarest, but they are hard to hit in high grades, so still standing true to that. I mean, they're still, very, very green, so it seems to play out. But yeah, looking beyond, for the most part, the blues were amongst the lowest graded, along with the 71 bis itself, with only having 3 copies in these 3 months, which I think is really impressive. I mean, 3 copies for the 71 bis, assuming at least, 1, maybe 2, some sort of crossover where people are cracking and resubbing. That's a pretty low amount, I would imagine. Now, obviously, we're looking at high grades, 8s, 9s, and 10s, so there are more in mid grades, of course. So yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed looking through my spreadsheet with me. Also glad I could make the pictures, maybe make it a bit more palpable, and maybe you'll learn something about some rookies from yesteryear, or maybe even the modern day. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, of course, make sure to leave a like. Anything you'd like to tell me, anything you thought about the pops that you were shown here today, let me know down below in a comment. Would love to hear it. And if you want to see more videos like this as soon as we go live, make sure to subscribe. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.